What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel for episode 6 of your weekly handheld gaming news. This week we've got a few things to go over, some driver updates, a couple of games to talk about, some new devices, that Xbox Handheld and MSI Claw 8 update that's pretty cool, and some Switch 2 news as always. So let's get into it. First off, there's two games this week worth talking about that have come out that you can play on your handhelds. However, one of them you probably don't want to. But the first one is Stellar Blade. This game's actually optimized pretty well, and while I have some frame time and pacing issues on the MSI Claw 8 AI Plus, mainly probably due to drivers, we'll see what happens there. It is very playable and works very well there. I've also tried it on the Steam Deck. There's videos up for that as well, where it's running very well and very playable on the Steam Deck, and it's running great on my Ally X and my Legion Go. So seems like Stellar Blade is a well-made PC port that's very playable on all the handhelds. So if you've been looking to check that one out and jump into it, I don't think you're really going to have any problems with that one. But our next game that came out this week that I was actually very curious to check out, probably morbid curiosity, but that was Mind's Eye. This is a game that has had a lot of eyes on it, a lot of red flags, and we assumed it would release with a lot of technical issues, which it did. Now, the motion capture, voice acting, and story for me personally is actually pretty good and is what's carried me through about 60% of the game so far of about a 15-hour campaign. But the performance issues, glitches, bugs, I've had missions quit and not work, I've had to reload in. I lost my save a couple of times. There have been all kinds of things that have happened to me on different devices, on main desktop PCs all over the place. So they have come out and mentioned over on X, they put up some posts and there's some apologies, of course. They're working on things. I believe today, at the time I'm making this video, they're already trying to push out a first hotfix. So we'll see if they're really going to stick with this one and kind of try to fix it up for everybody that is playing through it. There was a lot of potential there, but it was a bit of a big miss, and it obviously very rushed out the door, probably trying to get it out before GTA 6 comes out next year. But yeah, anyways, keep your eye on that one. Maybe don't purchase it right away. Watch some videos, and let's see if they truly update and fix Mind's Eye or what they do with it there. All right, next up, there have been a couple of driver updates for us since the last news video last week, and that one is for Intel. They're now on 6.881. If we jump over to the release notes, it's not necessarily worth updating to this one, but you could. I'm on the last one right before this one. There's Overwatch 2 fixes in here, though, and overall, the good thing is the 4 updates ago, there was 2 drivers in a row that were causing audio issues and performance issues on the MSI Claw devices, the new AI Pluses, with those Series 200 Ultra chips. This driver and the one right before it are absolutely fine. I factory reset, fixed my Claw, and installed the latest driver without issue. So if you still are suffering with issues, you may have to just start all over. And if not, this new driver seems to be absolutely fine. So Intel continues to rapidly be throwing out drivers. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. There might be some issues, but they do seem pretty quick to fix them, and they do keep working on game performance. Now, we also got a drop from AMD, 25.6.2. The unfortunate thing is I think we still can't really sideload this stuff anymore on the Z1 Extremes. Maybe some of the other devices with specific 7840Us or something. But I keep an eye on it because it's interesting when it comes to the FSR 4 and how that's kind of more locked down to the AMD hardware, and I'm guessing like you can't use this on NVIDIA and stuff like that like you've always used FSR kind of open source. They're really kind of pulling this into their newer GPUs, and I don't think there's support for APUs yet. Hopefully the upcoming Z2 Extreme will use FSR 4 as far as I understand it. That's what they're looking at, but I keep an eye on this update and AMD software stuff for Adrenaline, because I'm hoping when the Z2 Extremes come along, we get direct driver support from AMD instead of waiting months and months. I mean, sometimes a half a year or more for Lenovo to put out an update, or for ASUS or someone to catch us up. And that's why I kind of keep looking at this. It's not that you can necessarily update to this driver right now, but I like to keep watching what AMD's doing. And in the next few months as Z2 Extremes come out, I want to see how this pans out, and it'll become more relevant for us here on the news. But yeah, definitely some new drivers this week to take a look at. All right, this one's kind of cool. I don't cover AyaNeo much here at all. I've reached out to them a few times to try to get them to send me some stuff. We'll see what happens. So far, I've had no luck really getting anything from anyone. I buy all of my own handhelds and everything here. I reach out to these companies like every month, but it does look like a pretty cool device. I'm a DS, 3DS kind of person. I came from that era, and I think this is really interesting. We'll have to see what the exact price is. If any of you guys know, you can throw it in the comments. I haven't gone like really looking around for it, but over their original flip, they've certainly brought it up a bit. They're using an OLED now. They're going to be having a larger screen, and they're definitely going to have a more powerful chip with that HX 370 in there. So this is a pretty interesting one to look at, especially if you're an AyaNeo fan. And I just kind of like the clamshell, interesting design. I would like to see maybe some more of this come along down the road in an affordable way that, maybe we could get back to some cool designs like this, maybe even from ASUS, Lenovo, and others. But we'll see. I do think it's interesting looking. I thought I would mention it here. I don't get to cover their devices here much, but maybe in the future, if I can get them to start sending things this way, I would like to dive in. But yeah, anyway, the new AyaNeo Flip 1S DS does look pretty interesting. All right, something else to mention here before we jump into the final thing, getting into that Xbox handheld a little bit more. The MSI Claw 8 AI Plus and 7 AI Plus, both as far as I know there, got MSI Center M updates. This has taken away the predetermined modes like the 8, 17, and 30 watt presets that we had in manual, and we now have 2 sliders there to work with the TDP. I personally would have preferred they left the other options as well, plus the sliders, but I get it. We can kind of set things however we want there. So this is something a lot of people have been asking for, and you'll be able to now more fully adjust things instead of just going 17 to 30. You've got plenty of room in between for that 20, 22, 25, whatever you want to try to hit for a sweet spot, depending on what kind of game you're playing. So a pretty decent little update here for the MSI Claw and MSI Center. All right, and the final bit of kind of handheld news, PC news I want to hit on here was a big one for us that came out of the Xbox showcase, and that's the ROG Xbox Ally handhelds. There's an Ally X and an Ally version of this, a white and black version of those. And what's more exciting for me here is what they're doing on the software side, which we'll get into here in just a second. Let me go down here where we can see the side-by-side of these two devices. Now, the white device is going to be the less expensive, but I'm still guessing $500 to $700 for that. But that Z2A processor is about on par with like a Steam Deck performance. So I have my concerns with their claims that this is going to play all the upcoming Xbox games, at least natively. We've already seen how the Steam Deck can struggle with SteamOS to run certain newer games or Xbox games, and they're certainly going to be tough to run. And that 16 gigabytes of shared RAM is going to keep getting smaller and smaller as new games come out. So that device I certainly have my doubts about with certain games, but we'll see how that pans out. Now, the AI Z2 Extreme processor, of course, is going to be great. It's 10 to 30% more powerful than the Z1 Extreme. It's not going to be some huge double performance boost over what we've been used to the past couple of years with the Z1 Extreme, but it is going to be a nice little upgrade in my understanding, more efficient, and that type of thing. It's basically the Ally X2, but with Xbox on it and with their button and their handles and kind of going with that branding here. So it's pretty interesting. But aside from the hardware that I'll be interested to test out, the more important thing here that they're really working on is the software part. So they're kind of cutting down Windows to where it's not going to load up like Explorer.exe. It's not going to load up the desktop and other things. They're really trying to cut it down, kind of like Valve does with going back and forth of their desktop and their game mode for SteamOS. And it does have a ton of potential to really help with performance, smoothness. It's going to free up at least 2 gigabytes of RAM. They're working on making that even better. You're going to be able to use any storefront from Xbox, Game Pass, your cloud, to Steam, to EA, Ubisoft, GOG, whatever you want to do there. It's really interesting what they're working on here for the software and for the device. And that's the part I'm most interested in. Not only is that going to come to these ROG Xbox handhelds later on this year, but sometime next year they're talking about having it ready to roll out to existing and future Xbox or Windows handhelds rather that aren't, Xbox branded necessarily. So this is Microsoft and Xbox coming together with this larger vision to really combat the SteamOS that's kind of going everywhere and come out with a way to make Windows work with this, which is super exciting, and I can't wait to get more into it. I also think this is going to be the operating system, or the way the operating system works on the next console in 2027. So they're kind of working together, and you'll be able to get your $500 or $600 console for your TV setup or whatever, and have all your storefronts, have it still work like a console. That could be very interesting, and it could be an interesting way to bring PC gaming to the TV in a much easier way than like your PC and other things that we do that are a little bit more cumbersome than just a console plug and play setup. So yeah, a little bit longer on this one, but I'm super excited to not only get into kind of the hardware, but more like the software side of things that they're working on here, and see what we really do gain, and if it really does become a great competitor to what we see on SteamOS, but with all that compatibility of Windows. So one to watch out for. All right, a couple of things I want to touch on the Switch 2. Now, me personally, I'm really enjoying my Switch 2. It's been fantastic. Mario Kart's great. I've been playing that with my son every night. I love the upgrades to the older games. Cyberpunk is very surprising to me on the Switch 2, especially considering the amount of juice this thing is sipping on to pull off the handheld performance. Is it perfect? Absolutely not, but it is very impressive. I'm actually enjoying playing through the game on there. But there have been a couple of things when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2, and I had to fix mine as well. And this was the battery indicator issue. So there's a problem where the chip that's reading the battery charge is a little off, or the training is a little off. So you might look like you're losing a ton of battery when you're really not, and you're thinking you're getting 45 minutes, an hour and a half, whatever. Everybody seems a little different of battery, and it's just the indicator. I took mine all the way down to 1% to do a battery cycle. Now I know on lithium ion we want to be careful with that, but up to 50 times or more you can cycle those pretty good. I only like to do it once or twice, maybe 3 times throughout the battery's lifetime, but cycled that all the way down. Point is, when I got to 1%, I was able to play for almost 40 minutes when I got down there. So obviously my Switch wasn't calibrated either. So I drained it down, charged it all the way back to 100%. Then I also did the fix from Nintendo, where you power the device off, you hold the volume up and down buttons at the same time, you turn it on with the power button, let off power, but keep holding those 2 volume buttons until you get to the recovery screen. Once you're to the recovery screen, you have now fixed the battery issue. So I did both. I did a cycle and that, and dramatic improvement. So I got well over 2 hours in Cyberpunk when I was playing. I think I was at like 2 hours 18 minutes or something like that. I forget when I exactly shut off, but it wasn't in the red yet or completely dead, but I know we were getting there. But yeah, that was pretty impressive. So yeah, that 2 hour and up mark I think is pretty accurate from Nintendo on that. And looking at the fact that if I want to run full power on like my MSI Claw or my Ally X or something, that's a 2 hour battery as well. Takes those a lot more power to get the performance I want. Yeah, you can tone them down and get a lot more battery out of them, but easier to run games on the Switch 2 also will give you a lot more battery. So it's not a one-for-one comparison, but most of my devices I run full-blown anyway. I want all the performance I'm paying for, and I get about 2 hours of battery life. So for me, this is on par. It's less than the Switch 1, but once you calibrate and fix it, I actually think it's pretty fair considering what the device is throwing at me. And I was on like 80% screen brightness and HDR when I was in Cyberpunk, getting over 2 hours after the fix as well. So if you're having issues with that, definitely check into it, Google it, work on it. I think you could probably fix your battery issues. Now, the other thing I've been waiting to check out is the sales numbers for the Switch 2 for their weekend, for their launch weekend. Now, there's a ton of articles on this. This happens to come over from The Verge, but you can find all kinds of stuff on this. And Nintendo's Switch 2 is the fastest selling game console of all time. The Switch 2 has reached a record-breaking 3.5 million units sold in just 4 days. That's a ton to move in 4 days. Very successful launch for Nintendo. I'm personally loving my Switch 2, but I have like 16, 17 handhelds sitting here. If I count Switch 1, I have 3 of. I have 1 Switch 2, and I have 12 handheld PCs. So all the stuff that I work on here, and yeah, I really enjoy the Switch 2, what it's capable of, the amount of juice it's sipping on to pull off what it is pulling off. If Nintendo would have gave us a thicker device, a bigger battery, and up that performance a little bit in handheld mode, man, that NVIDIA chip would be very interesting, because docked mode is quite different from what we can get in handheld. But yeah, I'm super happy with my Switch 2 so far, playing it a lot with my son with Mario Kart World, enjoying Cyberpunk again, and checking out all those old updates and GameCube games. I realize a lot of people might want to wait for more games and more experiences to jump in. You know, I'm always an early adopter to this stuff. But yeah, I think it's really cool, and I think Nintendo's on track to that 18-20 million sold by next March, and it's just going to be very successful. And hopefully it helps continue carry everyone forward, because the handheld PC market, which I cover here mostly, is really growing. We may only be at 6-7 million units sold total between the 4 main companies when it comes to all of that, but yeah, it's continuing to grow. It's an awesome market. So really looking forward to all the Z2 Extremes that are going to be coming, and really looking forward to more great games on the Switch 2. I mean, if you're a handheld gamer or gamer in general, but especially a handheld gamer, I mean, the last year or so and the next couple, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, man, we're going to be eating very, very good. So enjoy all of your tech, your games, and your devices, and have a lot of fun. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for episode 6 this week. It wasn't a lot. I want to go through it kind of quickly, but some cool stuff in there. A little bit of stuff with the drivers. Mind's Eye's definitely been a fun one to watch in an interesting way as it has rolled out. We'll see what they do with that. I'm super excited to see what they do with the Xbox Handheld with ROG, more so on the software side than I am the hardware side, but it's going to be very interesting to see how all that plays together and really helps with performance. And a huge success for the Switch 2 off of their launch weekend, which is great to see as well. So anyways, guys, thanks a lot for coming to check out the video. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.